Great. So we are delighted to welcome you all to the maiden journey of the Climate Action Young Leaders Summit. I am Sumit Arora, a techie turned development sector professional and a climate enthusiast. And I'm going to be your host for the day.
So good morning, everyone. And my name is Gloria, Kasang, Bulus. I'll be speaking on climate change, the truth within the Hoax. And so use your voice, speak the truth to power, like the world depends on it.
No matter where you are, geographically, socially, economically, we've already started experiencing the consequences of climate change.
World leaders are still not believing it. What is your take on that? Why they don't believe it?
Concerned that the climate change or the climate change action will lead to a whole north-south divide and the new climate colonialism. The developing country parties may not have enough developmental carbon space required for their own economic development.
The last report for the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015 showed that none of the neutral carbon emission goals had been met by most of the subscribing countries. I think it is very important for the youth to be represented in places such as the UN, which I think it's already happening, but it should be more representative of each country around the world.
When he talked about the first generation to be able to end poverty and the last generation that can actually make considerable efforts to change the worst impact of climate change.
Pinpoint on not only on the youth, but I think it is more important to educate our seniors, our elders who have not been so much aware of their action, who has been not so much aware about their actions, which is harming our generations.
If the future is a future where climate change is too present, then it's going to be really, really hard to give people the tools to actually live for the world that is going to exist tomorrow. So we do need to act today.
These people have very limited knowledge about climate change, and that's worrying to me because these are people who supposedly go to the best private high schools in the country.
Climate justice is the intersection between, social justice and climate change, wherein I think the marginalized communities are the most impacted people around the world.
Because of there is social injustice, the climate injustice worsens a lot more.
But the general failure to recognize and respond to minorities' resulting problems greatly exasperates their suffering.
Climate change leads to social injustice, but social injustice causes more climate change to happen because people have to move to other areas, they have to exploit more resources to adapt, and this is a very important point. We have to find the loop and make a way to cut it.
Black and Latino communities have much higher rates of childhood asthma, and it is widely accepted. There is nothing inherent or genetic about why communities of color are dying at higher rates from COVID, asthma, or police brutality. These are social and structural problems that are created.
Like social injustice exists before, climate change and the issues that we are facing now. But climate change came to make this social injustice and the people are more vulnerable now.
Do you think any country today is even thinking about the climate problem being linked to social problem? Or
if you're talking about the government's intention in trying to think about climate justice versus social justice, I think it's bold.
In terms of the federal government in America, we're barely acknowledging that climate change exists. So we are nowhere near that level of realizing that equity in climate justice is a real problem.
Now I'm seeing in Israel that things are getting better. Parliament members some of them are doing and acting towards climate change, but
When we are talking about relief efforts, when we are talking about any kind of mitigation strategies, and we are not talking that relief camps have women and children and they are vulnerable. We don't even consider sanitary napkin, let's say sanitary napkin, as an essential product for relief effort.
I personally remember going to the site, and the place was full of carcasses. Buffaloes had died. There was a buffalo who was stuck. There was a baboon, with a small baby, and she was like so desperate for water. There was a warthog. It was really heartbreaking to see these things. Very young girls, 7 years old, 10 years old, missing out on school because of climate change.
Climate change always affects the most vulnerable populations, such as women. However, it is possible to mitigate these effects by giving them resources and access. And rural women play a triple role in their communities, which are of vital importance for their development. So if we fight for women's rights, we are fighting climate change.
They are the ones who go out to go search for food, search for basic needs for the family, water, nutrition, and whatnot, just to make sure the family is running. And the rural women participate more in water governance and management as well. So women are more likely to be poor than men in terms of less paid jobs, in terms of education, in terms of owning properties. Well, the government needs to step in and make policies that are gender responsive and impactful.
Like you talk about poverty, the women will be more poor. If you talk about hunger, I think the hunger problem will be more with the women because they don't get the relief. And
these women have no voice in the society, and they are reduced just the bodies. And what I say, we are the country that kills the most transsexuals at the world. We have not voice, we have not space, we have not time to fight with this. It's a fight without end.
To move away from increasing production towards value addition.
Very aware of the basic facts that the entire ecosystem that covers the entire planet is 70% of which is water, and it's such a shame that we do not give it the exact respect that it really needs.
So what it tells us is that if we do nothing, so in all likelihood by 2040, 90% of our corals will be lost, and all of them could be wiped out potentially by 2100. And hypothetically, even if someday we do achieve the target of limiting our global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the IPCC report still says that even that will have catastrophic effect on our coral reefs.
From the past 100 years, we have lost over 50% of the coastal wetlands. A lot of effects on the coastal residents or the indigenous people. A lot of mitigation plans have already been taken by several governments of the world. But we have to up our game in this. We have to be quick. We have to act fast.
They're the least polluters, in fact, the small island nations, and they get affected the most, right from Maldives to Mauritius to Madagascar.
Ocean ecosystems are at the epicenter of global warming. And as the ice sheets are melting, the ocean is going to trap more and more heat, which was earlier getting reflected back by the ice sheets. So this is going to further heat up the earth, melt our glaciers. And for instance, last year was the hottest on record for the Arctic area, wherein the ice sheet was at its second lowest on record. And as sea levels rise, we're witnessing more deadly heat waves, alteration of the monsoon cycle, and unseasonal rains, floods, cyclones. So that's impacting some of our coastal regions and cities as well.